Okay, so here is your lesson in your video for Act 2 of Macbeth. Hopefully you have read Act 2 in its entirety, and also Act 1, obviously. You've gone through, you've taken your own notes, you reviewed the tasks that I asked you to do for Act 1, and that you're all set here for Act 2. Act 2, again, is building on Act 1, so make sure you have a good handle on exactly what's happening in Act 1, not just plot-based, but also in terms of character development and the other ideas of imagery and figurative language and so forth, theme, even their subject at least, of that was being presented to you in Act 1. That'll help with your deeper understanding of Act 2. So in just a second, I will share my screen with you.
Okay, so I just gotta go back, actually. Okay, here we go. So Act 2 of Macbeth, what I want to start with actually is the idea of imagery and of this as a figurative device in terms of deepening your understanding of the actual play as a whole. What I would like you to first look at is soliloquy number 3. Is this a dagger which I see before me? This is the scene in which Macbeth, just before he goes into Duncan's chamber to murder him, is confronted with a vision of a dagger leading him to Duncan's bedchamber. Within this scene, or in the soliloquy, you have what can only be understood as somebody who is quite, I would say, tormented. You have somebody who's quite conflicted still. So you have a resolve at the end of 1.7, but it just seems to again be Macbeth be a man that he's not sure what he should do. So let's go through this and see what this in this soliloquy what this says. Is this a dagger for sorry? Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. A little bit of inversion again here happening. Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain? He has no idea what this is, right? Is this a dagger that he's imagining, or is this a dagger that is not just that he's envisioning, but is actually coming from his internal feelings? He doesn't know. I see thee yet in form as palatable as this which now I draw. Thou marshallest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools or the senses, or else worth all the rest again, unsure. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dungeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now, or the one half world, nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, and withered murdered, alarmed by the sentinel, the wolf, whose howls his watch, thus, with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides toward his design, moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from this time, which now suits with it, while thy threat he lives, words to the heat of deeds to cold breath gives. Interesting end here with the idea of hot and cold imagery, and again, very unsure as to what is his next course of action. Right? He's sure that this is in a sense is going to happen, but he's a bit unsure of even of himself. Another video here to watch of the same soliloquy, just acted with a different actor. And then what I would like you to look at is what does this soliloquy reveal about Macbeth with respect to his character. Is it consistent from what we've seen before in the previous two soliloquies? Again, comparing the soliloquy to the first two. Then the next part that I'd like you to look at: how do the images of the dagger and of blood connect to Macbeth and his overall characterization? So you decide what his overall characterization is, and then connect these two images of the dagger and of the blood. The blood's a motif, and I'll get to that a little bit later in this video as to what I mean by that particular idea. Blood's an image, but it's also a motif, which I'll explain. After the murder, we have this wonderful scene in its entirety of 2.2. Okay, the second scene of Act Two. Macbeth does murder sleep scene. I watch the scene how it's acted out, and then I want you to ask yourself, what does this actually reveal about Macbeth and of this character? And then again, how is Lady Macbeth being presented here? She's presented a certain way in Act One, Scene 5. Is this consistent or is this different? Any change is important. So note if there's a change. Note that if there's a consistency too. Lastly, I want you to notice from the scene of 2.2 any references to the natural world, so natural imagery, any references to blood, any references to eyes. These are important images within the play as a whole. Note them, so observe what they are, and then ask yourself, okay, why is it important that those images are being presented to me this way? One of the interesting parts of this act is scene 3 at the very beginning, lines 1 to 41, which is that of the porter. The porter is an interesting character here, and again, watch the clip of Ian McDiarmid playing this porter, and you get a sense of it's a bit of a comic relief. It's a bit of a break in the tension after the murder, and then the tension quickly builds up with the discovery of Duncan's body. But notice also the imagery that the porter uses here of heaven and hell, and of light and of dark. Okay, and then ask yourself, why is that imagery here important? Is this telling in some way of either events to come or events that have happened or will happen? Okay, one of the big focus questions here that for this act is, what has changed in Macbeth from Act 1 to Act 2? What's different in him? What has changed from 2.2 to 2.3 as well? And then look at all of that as a whole. Note those changes because they are significant, because they're revealing of a character, right? They're telling of characterization, and that is essential to understanding the play, its deeper meanings, its themes, and its ideas on a whole. Your overall activity here for Act Two is what I'm calling the placemat. So you are to examine, the question reads, where do we see Shakespeare's use of the pathetic fallacy in Acts 1 and 2? How does this tie to the overall motif of nature and the natural world? So I've given you the definition of what the pathetic fallacy is. It's when human emotions or behaviors are attributed to nature, but more specifically, it's when the weather reflects the overall mood of the characters or the play as a whole. Motifs are repeating images, symbols, ideas, etc. So as I said earlier, blood is a motif, clothing is a motif, the natural world and nature is a motif, right? All those images repeat all the way through the play. So they're there, what can be called not just images, but motifs. So here I'd like you to find at least three or four, try your best, word for word examples of the pathetic fallacy in 1 and 2. So of where this is happening, okay? And then in your own words, just explain the pathetic fallacy, what's being compared. Then next is, lastly in this column, I would ask you to just tie in the use of the pathetic fallacy to the natural world. How does that connect to the natural world? What's comment is it being made about the natural world in that sense? Okay, so that was pretty straightforward. So Act Two overall is quick, again, because this is a very quick play, and so as a result, what I'm getting you to really zero in on is Macbeth and his overall characterization, and especially some literary techniques like the pathetic fallacy.